Alrighty, guys and gals. Hope everyone is having a good morning this morning. We are gonna have a pretty good show today. I've been excited to have another Lancer on, and we've got a early Lancer joining us today. We've got Mr. Harold Ball. He was a Spec 5 crew chief with the Lancers, the 101st. Gosh, I'm blanking on the Company C 158th Aviation Battalion. Excuse me for that brain fart. But he's going to be here to share a little bit about his personal history and talk about what it was like being a crew chief with the Lancers in Vietnam. So, Mr. Harold, the floor is yours for you to give a little bio on yourself.
Thank you. First of all, it was B Company, Bravo Company.
Oh, B Company.
Yeah, we had the white dots on our helicopters there. For those of you that flew with us, I guess I'm very proud to be able to say that I'm proud to be able to be in this room with a bunch of heroes, because I tell you what, I flew. There was a lot of heroes flew on my bird, and I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to do that. I was an old country boy. I started out in West Texas. I was raised by my grandmother. She always instilled into us patriotism. Two of my uncles were in World War II, and she was a Gold Star mother, and so went from there. And so I've always been real patriotic. I originally finally met up with my parents and my stepdad and all, and we lived in Minnesota at the time. He had moved to Minnesota, and I joined the Navy, and I did all the paperwork, and they said there was a 6-month waiting list, and so I said okay, and time went by, and we ended up moving to South Dakota, or to New Mexico, and got to New Mexico and went down to the naval recruiter and told him, well, here I am. It's been 6 months. I'm ready to go in. And the guy said, well, sorry there, Mr. Ball. Well, it seems we've lost your paperwork. And I said, well, no problem. I'll take it again. I'll take the test and all there. And I said, once I take the test and all, then I can go right in, right? He says, no. I'm afraid since that 6 months went by, I said it's a year waiting list now, because nobody wants to go in the Army or the Marines. They want to go in the Navy or the Air Force. So that made me mad. So I walked right around the corner to the Army recruiter and walked in and says, can I go to Vietnam? Being young and dumb at the time, he says, young man, he says, you certainly can. How would you like to fly in a helicopter? I said, pick me. So I was thinking, okay, I'll go in, I'll have a couple of weeks. I'll celebrate with my buddies and all. And I said, when do I leave? In a couple of weeks? He says, no. He says, Uncle Sam needs you now. He says, you'll be at the bus station at 4:00 tomorrow morning. So off I went. From there, I went to Fort Bliss, Texas for my basic, which was another story. And from there, I went to Fort Eustis, Virginia for my helicopter school, single engine rotor utility helicopter school. And that was quite an experience. I learned a lot, learned to work on them, and I got to even fly in one of them one time, and that hit me off. That's what I wanted to do. So from there, they sent me to Savannah, Georgia, to Hunter Army Airfield, and as a mechanic. And I worked on the birds there, and I got orders finally for Vietnam, and they sent me to Fort Carson, Colorado, where the 158th was just starting up. They formed a brand new battalion, and We did our jungle training there in the wintertime and on the hills of Fort Carson there outside of Pikes Peak. It was real fun. We had in our jungle fatigues and all, and our whole battalion and all picked up, and the helicopters flew an advance party and went to California and loaded up on ships and went to Vietnam that way. I was still in maintenance at the time, and we loaded up on a C-141 and got to ride in the back and laying up on the duffel bags and all the equipment and supplies and all. That's the way we went. Got to Vietnam. There wasn't a whole lot there. We had to build our hooches and all there at Camp Evans. And I wish I had a dime for every sandbag I filled, as most all of you, I'm sure, did. From morning till night, it was sandbags. And so we did that and worked on maintenance. We had a little tent-like affair that we used for our hangar for the helicopters to work on, and I finally was asked if I would like to be a crew chief. They needed one, and so I said yes. And my first mission, I was taking out sea rations and mail, ash and trash, as we used to like to call it, to the guys out in the field. And you could see they were really happy to get them and all, and nothing happened and all. And then after a while, they started calling us for more different missions and all, and started and went to a place called Meloc or Maylock, which was up around Quan Tree. Never been there before. They asked us that, we couldn't talk about it at the time. And I said, goodness gracious, what's going on now? And we picked up some guys. I tell you what, it was kind of like out of the movies. Tiger stripe fatigues, some of them didn't. Some of them had some missions NVA outfits. Didn't know what in the world we were doing. Ended up taking them out and found out later we were flying into Cambodia and dropping them off. And then that evening, and maybe the next evening, we'd get a call and say, hey, we got to go. And we would go, and we didn't have the ladders at the time, but we had ropes that we had tied in the cargo area with sandbags on the end of them. And we would hover down in through the jungle there and chop the trees and the limbs and drop the ropes down with the sandbags, and the guys would come and hook their D-rings onto the ropes and would lift them out at nighttime. And had tracers coming up at us and all, kind of looked like bushel baskets coming up at us at the time. And didn't really care for that too much, but we chopped a lot of trees down and got them out and took them back and let them off, and then again for another time. So it was pretty much like that the whole time I was there. We would do from either taking hot chow out to the guys out in the field, or we'd take one time we had some guys they called a hatchet team. We took them out, dropped them off, never saw them again. Don't know who picked them up or where they went, but come to the conclusion we had some guys there that were a whole lot braver than most of us. I tell you what, I just really don't know how they did it. And got back to Quan Tree one night and was in my bunk, and my gunner, I don't know if he had smoke something or whatever. He was a new gunner, and he had a captured 45 that he'd got from somewhere, and he was messing around with it and ended up shooting me in the abdomen.
Oh, God.
So from there, I was medevac to the field hospital there. It severed my artery and all, and if I wasn't real close there, I would have been gone. But then I spent 6 months in Japan and left there, went to Fort Walters, Texas to recuperate. And then from there to Fort Bragg, where I was with the flight detachment there at Bragg. I ETS'd out of the military there at Bragg and went back home and got a job. And at the time there was, there in Texas is where I'm originally from. And at the time helicopters were flying over going to Corpus Christi, Texas to be rebuilt and what have you. And I kept hearing them and all. And I turned around and recruited again. This was after 2 years, so I lost 2 stripes. I went in as a PFC. They sent me to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I went from there to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, to a flight detachment, and from there they sent me to Germany, where I spent in Hanau, Germany, for 4.5 years at Fliegerhorst-Kaserne. I was crew chief with the 173rd Robin Hoods there. And from there, they sent me back to Fort Benning, where I was with the 498th medevac at the time. I was doing medevac, and Jonestown came along, and we were tasked with a mission to help the people out of the jungle and all, get them out there and rescue, and ended up being the ones to pick up the bodies and all of that and take them. So that was pretty much my career.
Holy cow.
But
Wow.
I love the helicopter. I never got to fly in a Black Hawk. I always wanted to. And if anybody's ever up in Western New York, Wheatfield area, we redid a Huey helicopter and put it up as a monument there for the Vietnam vets and all, and looks pretty nice. So,
Wow, that's amazing. You definitely sound like you had a quite exciting career. I mean, sadly, sounds like it was cut short by a terrible accident. But even with the time and country that you had, it sounded like you were doing quite a bit. I know we've had a 20th SOS crew chief on, and he was very, very early 60s and stayed in for quite a while on into Vietnam into the 70s. But what was the training like once you figured out after basic training that you were going to be in the air side of things for a prospective crew chief?
the training at the school in the States, you mean?
Yes, sir.
It was just helicopter mechanic school, and of course they sent us. We had a little door gunner phase, where we got familiarized with the M60, and we got to shoot, I think, 50 rounds out the side of the gun. Once we got to Vietnam and become a crew chief, they had the little loading trays with the loading chutes on the 60s and all. We threw all of that garbage away. So good. It jammed up, and we used minigun cans and strapped them down with our seat belts, because none of us wore seat belts or anything in the birds. We pretty much free in there, and loaded up all of our 60 ammo in the minigun cans, and then we took no one in our unit liked ham and lima beans in our C-rat, so we would use that for the feed tray on the 60. It happened, that particular can happened to snap right in place, a full can, and that's what we use for the rounds to go through to feed the 60 with. And yeah, I was fortunate. I was there long enough. I got to participate in Hamburger Hill and the other things. I missed Ripcord. The rest of my unit was at Ripcord and lost a whole bunch of probably the most helicopters in Vietnam was lost there at Ripcord. But I think our unit, we got infamously got credited for losing the most rotor blades and all that, for chopping down trees and all, going into tight LZs and all in the Ashon and Cambodia and Laos and what have you, you know, chopping down through there. And we had the most replaced, but
jeez. So
I carried a 60. I carried my sidearm was a 45. I had my M16, my issued M16. I carried M79 grenade launcher. I had AK-47 that I acquired with 2 cases of ammo underneath my seat for that. I like to shoot back when green tracers would come up. I kind of like to return the green tracers back to them, you know. Had all kinds of grenades. Willie Pete's had the regular frags, all colors of smoke grenades. We used to take on some of them, we would take our smoke grenades, fuse and interchange them with the frag grenades so there wouldn't be a delay in it, you know, and
just instantaneous.
You know, and just happened to drop out some of the frags on the ground, you know, with the pins still in them, and so they could pull a pin and get an instantaneous relief, you know. So
wow, we
did stupid stuff like that, but like I say, the guys we picked up and took out there, I tell you what, I don't know how they did it. These guys, I've got a boonie hat that one of them gave me that I've got it packed away, and our unit was very fortunate that we were able to be in the SOG organization and all. They've allowed us that. 158, I don't know if everybody knows, but it ended up turning into the Night Stalkers, the 160th, later on at Campbell and all that.
Delta uses and the SEALs
use. Delta, the SEALs, all of that use. The 158 pilots and went to there. So that our unit actually started that. So that was another thing I'm very proud of. Even though I didn't get to be in with them.
Speaking of, I'll probably go back a time or two, and there we'll get to some of the viewer questions as well. You had mentioned Mylock and picking up the men in tiger stripes and everything. Do you happen to remember if this was a SOG team with Indig, or was it an all-American group this time? Or
we had I was up there several different times, and we had all different types. We had SOG teams. We had the indigenous, the Montagnard, the Hmong, and all. We carried a little bit of everybody in every place and all. So it was very interesting. You never, you know, it's just kind of like a box of chocolates. You never knew what you was going to get till you got there, you know. So I guess the pilots probably knew, but we weren't. The rest of the crew wasn't privy to it at the time, and
so would you say out of your entire time flying over there, that were those missions, did you think were the most hairy and most dangerous, or did you get into some stuff in South Vietnam that was pretty wild too?
No, I was never in South Vietnam. I was always up in, well, I say South Vietnam. I consider it North Vietnam. Up at the DMZ. I was never down any further than probably Fubai was probably, Da Nang was probably the furthest south I've ever been.
Wow.
I never saw Saigon, any of those places like that. We stayed up north all the time, right there along the Z, and have perchance happened across the DMZ also, not intentional either, but pilot happened to misguide and go across the DMZ there.
Here we are at Camp Evans right here. And yeah, I mean, you guys, there's Hamburger Hill's site. I mean, there's the DMZ. Yeah, I mean, you guys were, I mean, literally stationed right there where, I mean, here's the SOG base over here, Marble Mountain, and then all the Force Recon teams and Marines up here before the Army took over. I mean, yeah, y'all were right in the middle of it, right here by Way City. Good Lord.
Yeah, we never got to spend a whole lot of time around Way even. It was always, we were always gone up north. So
I apologize. My dog just popped in here and jammed the door open. I'm sorry. When when y'all were, as you said, you were tasked with SOG missions as the Lancers were, were y'all only operating and picking up teams out of the Mylock FOB, or were y'all launching out of Quang Tree with guys, or going to Khe Sanh to pick guys up, or anything like that?
mainly we had out of the Maylock and Quang Tree. That was the only two that I have.
Okay.
Now, of course, we picked them back up out of other places, but that's where they staged from.
Okay. That would definitely make sense.
When I was there.
With CCN, especially, and that was going to be one of the questions. What time? When did you arrive in country? In Vietnam.
January of '69.
Wow. Okay. Yes, sir. So that was just that was when they were still operating for CCN. Quang Tree was always one of the CCN launch sites. But yep. Wow. That's amazing. How long since when you get in country until one of the viewers wanted to know until you arrived at Camp Evans? Is that pretty immediate, or do you have a school you got to go to?
Oh, no, there was no school. They wanted us up there right away to put us to work. So
okay, wow.
I think we spent the night. We flew into Da Nang and got off and we flew on a Caribou into Evans.
Okay, wow. In '69, this is post Tet. What when you're first landing? I know when you land in country, it's you're being herded one way. You can't really get a feel of things with everybody because these aren't guys that have been doing the missions and all of that. But when you get to Camp Evans, what's the mood like? What's it feel like morale wise? Is everybody gung ho still? Is the war still being fought hard, or has news back home of y'all losing Tet, which y'all did not, come back to Vietnam?
When we first got there, everybody was too busy. It was a big red spot in the ground from the air, just mud and all, and everybody was too busy filling sandbags and trying to make a base camp, and I don't remember hearing any bad news from back home. We didn't really get that before, and yeah, that picture you're showing right there is going into what we call the round table. We were known as the Lancers, and we got that name. The pilots, they like to drink Lancer wine. That's where it came from.
Wow.
Lancer wine, and they would drink that, and then our insignia with the Paladin, the Lancer, and all. We had a door gunner, Burke. He drew that pencil that out on a piece of sea ration carton, and drew that picture, and somebody took it down to the village, and Mama San made up the patch down in the village, and everybody liked it, and the rest of it. Yeah, Richard Burquest was his name. He passed away. He started out, he was airborne infantry. He was over there infantry for quite a while, and then came and become a door gunner. And
was that common to have guys that had done prior tours on the ground to come over to y'all and be door gunners, or was it mostly guys coming like you and becoming straight door gunners?
No, we had very few that just came out of school as a door gunner. Most everybody came from the infantry or whatever.
Wow.
They already had that experience, which was, they took care of the 60s and all of that. And who better to take care of a 60 than one of the grunts, the school guys, they would never made it. Fortunately, I had my stint in maintenance and all of that, and I was able to work on the helicopter and all of that, and I got to know the guys and got to ride on every once in a while, and then I become a crew chief. I become in charge of the helicopter. So
how long does it take you to work your way up to becoming a crew chief, time wise?
Well, they made some people crew chiefs that were door gunners. So it's hard to really say. In that type of environment there, we had some guys that had been in the infantry and become a door gunner, and then was promoted to a crew chief when their crew chief left or something happened to them. Because the door gunners work, the whole crew, both the pilots, the gunner and myself, we always worked together on the bird, maintenance wise and everything else, and for the most part, if the pilots didn't do it, then they got ragged so much that they ended up doing it afterwards anyhow. But most of the time, everybody pitched in and got it done, because you had 25-hour inspections, and 25 hours came along real quick when you're flying. So
wow, that's got to be a huge deal for a young man coming in and taking over as a crew chief, because like you said, when we were speaking offline, the pilots rent the bird, y'all own it, and everything's under your purview, shall we say. Phone call.
can I call you back? Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
It's fine. No need to apologize, sir. So let's see. When you were after you kind of take over, what is the daily task, or I don't know if it's I would assume, or every mission, what's the task for a crew chief to get the bird ready and get the crew ready for a operation?
You get up, you make sure that you go to the flight line. You make sure the windshields are clean. You make sure that you drain some of the fuel. Make sure you take a fuel sample. Make sure the fuel's all right. You check things out. Make sure nothing has been sabotaged with the bird. You check it from front to back, just like you see someone at a pilot at the airport or something that's checking over the bird. You climb up on top. You check all the moving parts and make sure all the oil levels are good. You check the logbook to start with and make sure you don't have any maintenance that needs to be done before you go. In the meantime, your gunner is at the gun shack picking up the 60s and all. He comes out and lays one on each side, and make sure we've got plenty of ammo in our cans, and we've got extra ammo with us to put in the cans if we need it. All of our other grenades and what have you. Check on all the pilot up front. Make sure everything's all set and just ready for the pilots to jump in and start doing their checklist and start firing up the bird. And we're there ready whenever the pilots get there.
Was there ever a I guess with y'all's situation, as opposed to being a dust off or anything like that, did y'all ever have a situation to where y'all had to be quick on the draw and get called up and be quick on your checks and all of that to go out to something like a bright light, getting a down pilot or anything like that?
Or prairie fire?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, be on standby, and sometimes would even sleep in the bird and have the blades turned so that all the pilot had to do was hit the igniter and crank her up, and we'd be gone. So,
jeez Louise.
Well, the guys are out there in the field. They're waiting on us. Sometimes you hear them on the radio and they're whispering and all. If they can do that, and they're having running gun battles with them on the ground. And so you got to get out there and get them.
I can only imagine what some of those radio transmission must have sounded like for y'all on the way in, trying to get to them and only making y'all want to get there that much quicker to help them.
If you had said before you had talked to Colonel Jacoby, he has some of the ones when he was there and all of that, some of the prairie fire missions and all on recording that you can actually listen to, radio transmissions and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a well orchestrated deal. Well, you would think you listening to it, you would think that can't understand anything that's going on, but everybody knows exactly what's happening and what you've got to do. And
that's been one thing as I've learned, not only just through SOG and what guys were doing during prairie fires, but guys helping out conventional units, that the almost ballet in the air that you guys are conducting, along with the FAC, the bombers, making sure that there's no midair collisions. I mean, considering how much crazy stuff was going on, it's a wonder there weren't more midair collisions with how tight stuff was going. But you don't, I mean, there are some, but you don't really hear about all that many, especially with y'all.
When you go in and you've got a team of Cobras coming in right next to you, firing off, the rockets and the miniguns and the flechette rockets and all, and they're hitting all around, and
that's instant bush hog of the jungle right there with all those Cobras.
Oh man, those Cobras! I tell you what, they've saved our bacon quite a few times too. Going into a hot LZ or something like that, we'll start receiving fire and pop a smoke, and the Cobras roll in, and pretty much they snuff them out. But
wow. And you had mentioned that y'all would grab the 60s, and y'all had 60s on the aircraft. Did we see a lot of photos now coming out? Of the 20th SOS, where famous Air Force had the miniguns. Some of the Navy guys, actually, the Seawolves, put 50 calibers on theirs. Did y'all ever think about putting anything or using anything other than the 60s that y'all had? Or
we were an assault helicopter battalion, which we were called slicks. So they never put any other thing on there. The Huey was able to have rocket pods, miniguns. Like you said, they had 50s on there. The 50s seemed to shake apart the cracked the hard points in the helicopter and all, so they were real bad on the maintenance and all. But we never had anything other than 60s and whatever we could get our hands on to shoot with. We even had a guy shoot a law out the side out of it one time, and that wasn't a pretty sight right there. You know, he got excited, and
I can only imagine what that must have felt and sounded like with that thing in the cabin of that bird coming out. That's wild. I've never heard of anything like that in my life.
I mean, it's a wonder the bird didn't go down.
True that. And speaking of that, you had mentioned you actually had an AK that you'd return fire, which that is absolutely very cool. You sending green tracers back at them to psyop the mess out of them. Did all of the men on the aircraft have their personal choice on, God forbid, if y'all went down, personal weapons y'all could carry, such as the 16 or an AK or just a pistol?
Everybody was issued a 16, and most everyone in the air crew was issued a 38. But I preferred a 45. You had the option of a 45 or a 38. I preferred the 45. I could hit something better with the 45. I didn't care for the 38 that much. As far as the other things, the M79, that was stuff that was picked up from, you know, you might go into a place that had a big firefight or something like that, and they would throw in a bunch of weapons in there, you know, captured weapons or whatever, and we would kind of take our pick out of it, you know, and like that's where I got my AK from. I had an SKS also, and other guys had Swedish Ks and they had car 15s. Some of the pilots had car 15s.
Wow.
And you know, it's just whatever you could get your hands on and want to fire. And sometimes you go in there and you would pick up whatever you had and fire a little bit of everything at the same time. You know,
that's too cool. Wow. That's that would seem like a good idea. The 16 is great, but man, if you could find a car 15 laying around or someone to trade with or give you one, boy, that sounded like that would be the perfect weapon to have, with how small and collapsible you could make it, and be the perfect weapon for y'all on the aircraft.
I hardly ever fired my 16 when I was in country.
Wow.
I hardly ever did. I had too many other toys I could play with. And
it sounds like y'all had y'all's pick of the litter as far as guns and such. That's pretty cool. I did not know that, and that seems like, I mean, with them putting all the weapons on board and all that, it's not like, you know, all of them are, you know, expected to make it back. I mean, hell, they leave just piles of weapons laying around if they had to get out. So why not take one for good use?
Right.
So I hate to even bring up such a bad way to end your tour, but how long are you flying and active and such as that before the unfortunate accident occurs?
This happened. I got there in January, and the best I can figure out, it was years after I got out of the military and all. I lost my memory of all of that. I couldn't remember anything. The doctor told me that because of trauma and all of that, the body tends to make your mind forget things like that, so you won't keep remembering it. But the best I can think of, I was probably there till July, maybe.
So June, I'm trying to count when is that? 6 months, 7 months?
About 7 months, yes.
Yes, sir. Okay. I had forgotten when you first got there, but I thought that, yeah, that's about 7 months. Wow. And how long was did the air aspect change with ground and air as far as the Army tour, or was an Army tour an Army tour? 12 months?
An Army tour was an Army tour.
Was it 12
Most
months?
of the time it was 12 months, yes.
12 months. Okay. So sadly, you were cut short on about 4 or 5 months of your tour. Wow. So you had really just gotten into probably where you were just in the groove of things and really starting to hold your own out there and
Right.
get to go with it. God, that is terrible. Do you happen to remember was your last flight a SOG flight or anything, or were you doing an ash and trash for the grunts out in the field?
No, we were up at Quan Tree. We were up there for that week, going in, dropping off people and picking them up. So
I've heard a lot of good stories of some of the SOG men that worked at Quang Tree, and a lot of hairy missions that came out of there. I mean, heck, most of CCN's missions were hairy. And this is 69, so I mean, this is when John Stryker Meyer and I think Lynn Black was still in country, Dick Thompson. So this is when all of that's going on, guys that are watching. If y'all are curious time wise, what's going on here?
We never knew their name because no name tapes or anything. Nothing to show they were U.S. or anything.
You may get lucky and hear a nickname in passing,
exactly,
or something like
that.
that. Did you get? In y'all's time out there, were there a few of the guys that y'all not got super close to, but got friendly with enough that y'all saw a few times?
When I was there, no, there wasn't a whole lot that I saw. One guy maybe twice, I think, but
wow,
the others they were busy. It seemed like we'd go and pick them up, and they'd come back, and they would stand down for a couple of days, maybe get all loaded back up again, and be right back out again.
Yeah,
it was constantly. That's what I'm saying. These guys, they were supermen as far as I'm concerned. What they put up with.
Yeah, I mean, you'd get lucky, as you said. I mean, the standard was a week stand down, but I mean, I've heard of guys being put in, getting a few hours rest, and being inserted on the next target within 12 hours. And
we had some like that. They had enough time to brought them back in. They resupplied with ammo and all, and went right back out. So.
That's got to be. I mean, that's tough on both of y'all, both the ground and the air, because I mean, it's a hot area, and you're going right back in where you just were. That's got to be tough.
Tougher on them, I feel.
True.
They know what they just got out of, and they're going right back in there.
Oh, gosh almighty.
With no thought of it. That takes a special person to do that.
That y'all's whole organization, from air to ground and everything in between, took special people. I mean, it's honestly amazing the stuff y'all were doing, not only at y'all's age, but with what y'all had to work with at that time. I mean, that stuff that Delta Force and all of that would be doing today. It's just crazy. Let's see, guys, if y'all have got any questions, I've been asking a lot. If y'all have got any before we start to wrap up, get them in, because we're going to be wrapping up here, getting close to an hour. Is there anything, I know really it's a crazy question to ask, because really everything you did is probably memorable in some shape, form, or fashion. But is there something, a mission or something in particular that stands out that you're most proud of your time in Vietnam?
No, I think just going out and picking up the guys, that made me the proudest. We being able to, when they call us, we were able to go in and get them. That's the thing. And I've had many of them say, you know, I said, man, I wouldn't want your job for anything. And they said, man, I wouldn't want to be up in the air with you either. So, you know, would rather be on the ground. But yeah, that was the proudest I think I've ever been. I think the worst I've ever been was Hamburger Hill. That was a bonehead mission as far as I'm concerned, and lost a lot of guys. But
That one, the movie does it somewhat justice, but there's a lot more to that situation that that folks need to read into, and it was a numbered hill that meant nothing in the long run, and they sent boys up there to their death, and they sent men and choppers to their untimely death, and it was just a complete and utter crapshoot of a situation. I really hate hearing about stories of men who were on the ground or in the air from there, because it was that bad. It was just terrible.
Sent them up there. They took it. They retreated from it. They pulled them off of it. The enemy went up there again, and they sent the guys back up on it again the second time. So, you know, just I don't know.
It literally defies logic. I mean, it absolutely defies logic. God Almighty, that's another one that I tried to put out of my mind of bonehead military operations. Yeah, I could see how that would be the lowest part. Did as we start to close up, before we change on that, how long was the Lancer involvement with Hamburger Hill? Was it the entire operation?
Yeah, it was the entire operation. It was called Apache Snow. It was Operation Apache Snow, and yeah, it was the whole operation.
There is I don't know if it's an internal document from the Lancers, but there's I can't even think of what you call it, but there's a little history that Colonel Jacoby gave me on B Company, and it mentions Apache Snow and just the massive loss of aircraft in it, and what a debacle it was. I'll try and get some of that out to y'all guys, because like he said, if you've ever seen it, you wouldn't know Apache Snow is Hamburger Hill. Hamburger Hill is just a slang name that the boys on the ground gave it, and it was just known as that. I can't even remember the hill number that it was, 5 something or 7 something, but colloquially known as Hamburger Hill. So
it was Dong F Bai or something like that was the name of the
actual hill. Yes, sir. Wow. That is a good one. There's several good books, and now that I think of it, I think there's actually an author that wrote a book on with the name Apache Snow. I'll need to look into that and see. Wow. So unfortunately, you have your accident. You were sent to did you say Okinawa to or Japan?
No, Japan.
Japan. Okay, to heal up. And how that is that's got to be a lengthy recovery process.
I was in Japan for 6 months, and worst time I ever had. That was the most terrible place I ever been before in my life. Unfortunately, our Army medics and all of that were they like to pull bandages off and laugh about it. And when we first got into the hospital, they wheeled us in on gurneys, and the orderlies there said, "Here's a bandage cart. For those that you can change your own, well, here it is. For those that can't, we'll be back tomorrow because there's fresh snow up on Mount Fuji." And so they left, and there we were. So, and it was that way the whole time. I liked nothing about it.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare. And you literally you can't be like, I'm good to go or all that. I mean, it's until
No,
the doctors and all them get done with you. And
I couldn't move. I had a incision in my abdomen about 10 inches wide, and
oh
it
gosh.
was they hadn't sewed it up because they couldn't sew it up because it would get infected, they said.
Oh,
So
jeez Louise. Yeah, that is terrible. Is your last is your full recovery there, or did you say you had another stateside hospital visit, or were you back stateside to start back into Army?
I had to go to uh, Fort Walters, Texas, to the hospital there for my last recovery. I was still in a wheelchair at the time, and from there I was sent to Fort Bragg, where
Okay.
I spent the rest of my first tour, where I ETS from.
Ah, okay. And let's see, Fort Bragg. Did what was it? You I think you mentioned you had were on a medevac unit. What were some of these units? What were y'all tasked with doing at these detachments you were with stateside?
The medevac unit I was with was at Fort Benning, and we were tasked from anything from civilian casualties somewhere to military casualties all over. We would go pick them up. Uh, Car accidents out on the highway,
Oh,
go pick them up, and just like the med flights going to the hospital and all, we would take them in.
wow, almost like an early life flight situation.
Exactly, but we would go out of state. We'd go into Alabama, and because
Wow,
we're right there on the border, and so we would go into Alabama and all of Georgia, all of
wow.
it.
That sounds like a really, I'd hate to use the word cool, but that sounds like a very cool job, interesting job that y'all are doing.
I learned a lot from. We had I was a crew chief, and we had an EMT and one other person on there. Sometimes it was just me and the EMT, and then the two pilots, and
Wow.
we had it set up for stretchers on the inside.
I'm sure you did you end up taking medical courses, or did you have to pass some medical courses for your job, become certified or anything?
No, I was never certified. They taught us, of course, the CPR and how to install a proper tourniquet and put an IV in an arm with Ringer's lactate or whatever, for
Oh
fluid
wow.
such
Okay.
as that. But that's all.
Wow. I mean, keep everybody alive till help shows up.
Right.
Wow. Okay, that is wow. Um, and you mentioned you did that. You were there for a while, and then uh, uh, did you say you were with the 173rd flying in Germany?
In Germany, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow,
I was at Fliegerhorst Kaserne in Hanau, Germany for 4.5 years there.
wow, wow. What was that job tasking?
We flew around the border there and checked out the border. We flew nuclear surety missions, the Hawk missile batteries, and we flew all over the place. We close to East Germany and all around the border there, and we were there at the Fulda Gap. They at the time that's where the Russians were supposed to come across. If they did, was at the Fulda Gap, and we were there.
So the wall is still up and everything's still pretty hardcore
Oh
in
yeah, it was at the time, sure.
wow, okay,
Sure.
yeah.
And
Oof.
we flew around the Czech border and all of that. They had the guard towers up that tended to blow over in the wind. That was kind of funny.
That is, I like that. That man, that's an interesting uh place to live and be working for 4 years. What were you there for the fall of the wall?
No,
No.
I was already back.
Wow. Gosh, I forgot where where was your next detachment? Was that when you were on the Jonestown rescue operation?
That was when I was with the 498th medevac there at Benning.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
After that, I couldn't. I had made. I was Spec 5 again, and I couldn't make any rank. So my buddy there, he was a fellow crew chief there at Benning, and he talked me into going to chemical school, 54 Echo School, and because they needed them, and so I ended up signing up for that and went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds and there for the 54 Echo School, and my buddy ended up not going, so I come back to Benning. I made my E6 right out of school, and he was on the same orders as a crew chief as an E6. So
Wow.
I come back to Benning as the 36 Engineer Group NBC NCO. So
Oh, wow.
that's what I was doing when I finally got out the last time.
Oh, wow. That Aberdeen sounds like that's where all the crazy the proving ground sounds like it's quite the place. What was your experience like at the proving ground?
I was actually, it was a place called Edgewood Arsenal is where the school was. And when you go to a place and they issue your protective gear and they tell you if you hear a siren go off, make sure to put it on, you know. And I saw some crazy stuff. I saw some stuff that is just, you know, some of that chemical stuff is, man.
I've heard some stories about destruction out there that it's thank God most of the civilized world doesn't use gas because they said it is some nasty stuff out there.
It's not only gas, it's aerosol and everything else. I was at Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah, and they had a football stadium, and we were sitting in bleachers at one end of the stadium, and we had our protective gear on, and they brought out a goat and tethered him out at one end, and had like a little petri dish, and had a vial of something with a little eyedropper, and they dropped a couple of drops in the eyedropper, and the goat was at the other end from where they did that from, and it wasn't 6 seconds and he fell over dead. So
holy cow.
But there was actual a little small town there, a little community there in Utah that everybody died, mysterious reasons, and of course that was kind of covered up. But I feel very, very much that it was something that got in the wind, and that did it. So,
boy, that's that's a real test right there. I bet that
people just don't understand what we have the capability of, you know. So
that, I mean, that's downright terrifying, quite frankly. Jeez Louise. Um, I'll go as far to say you might have been glad to be done with that duty station and retiring from that.
Oh, I was very much so. It gave me quite an awareness of what, you know, when they talk about, you know, we need to do something to make sure they don't develop this chemical weapon or biological weapon. Yeah,
absolutely.
I got when this COVID mess came, you know, that
looked just like something cooked up.
Of course, I had the conspiracy theory, you know, about that. So,
I mean, that is what they're doing. You know, I'm not going to say any more to where my channel will get mysteriously deleted, but you know, that's what it looks like. That's what they make them to look like. So, geez, that is terrifying. And I can't imagine what the scuttlebutt was after seeing that and getting away from that that football stadium. But
we couldn't talk about it at the time.
oh man, I'd forgotten about probably having an NDA or a secrecy act.
Exactly.
Oh wow. Yeah, I would be glad to get away from that. That's too much. So when do you finally hang up the boots and call it a career with the Army?
When the Army started in changing policies on their training and everything, well, especially in basic and all of that, I don't want to do that, and you can't make me, or Mom will call my congressman, and stuff like that. It just got
way out of hand.
It got way out of hand, and my medical started biting me. So,
wow,
got out on a medical discharge. So,
wow. And how many years did you end up serving with the
13?
Wow, 13 years with the Army. That's amazing. Heck of a career to look back on. Wow. Jeez. Let me see here. Everybody's quietly listening. That's good. I'm glad everybody's paying attention and listening. We just crossed the hour mark. So, is there anything, it doesn't look like we've got any more questions. Is there anything that you'd like to close out with for today before we shut down?
No, but it like I say again, it was an honor to be able to do this, and I think you're doing a good job, Bud, of doing all of this and getting it recorded and finding out stories, because I tell you what, that's one of my greatest. I love going to the VA and talk to the old World War II vets and the Korean vets and all of that, because they have stories and they have tales that you'll never see in a history book. So I think it's a great thing that you're doing, and I appreciate you doing it.
That means the world coming from you, a veteran. That's what the reason started to document for not only y'all but for your families, and of course started getting viewers and all of that. But I'm very glad that you veterans think I'm doing a good job. That means the world, and that's what I'm trying to do, is honor y'all and preserve y'all's legacy as best as I can. So I appreciate you spending an hour with us today talking about your illustrious 13-year career with the Army. Outstanding, and just can't wait to hopefully maybe on down the line, if we can get another subject matter, maybe we can have you back on and you can share with us again. But I think that'll be it for today, and we'll shut her down. And I hope everyone has a good day and or a good afternoon. So we will see y'all later.